sore-sore. Bentar ya, masih nungguin analis kita juga. Sambil masih nungguin Pak Dilipnya juga ya. Oke. Hai semuanya. Halo Mas Angga.
Hai Talia, halo teman-teman auditor.
Hai Vitor dan fellow yang kepengen tahu tentang bumi ya. Mungkin mau share sedikit our event tuh kayak gimana kali ya. Thank you banget ya udah join di Stockbit Emiten Trending on stream. Kenapa kita pilih bumi? Karena kebetulan di Stockbit stream kita tuh lagi gede banget bumi. Dan bumi tuh udah nyampe 8.000 mention sih di stream kita. Jadi kalau misalnya belum tahu tentang bumi, bisa juga cek langsung ke stream di stockbit.com untuk cari tahu kayak komen-komennya apa. Dan keep in mind ini disclaimer juga. Jadi dengan mengadakan acara ini bukan artinya kayak mengajak untuk membeli atau menjual ya, lebih melainkan pure edukasi, informasi dan diskusi terkait saham bumi. Jadi no kalau misalnya pengen ketemu emiten apa, please juga di stream kita karena biasanya kita cari yang lagi rame di stream Stockbit kita tuh apa sih. Dan kalau misalnya ada questions, bisa taruh juga di Q&A chat kita. Jadi ntar setelah kita ngobrol-ngobrol Pak Dilip, mungkin kita bisa bacain juga sih your questions tuh kayak gimana. One more thing, keep in mind ini ntar presentationnya bakal di bahasa English karena memang Pak Dilip memang lebih comfortable sih di bahasa English. Tapi nggak apa-apa, jadi kalau misalnya nggak pede, we will translate it for you guys sih. Kalau misalnya kalian ada questions, pengen ditanya di bahasa juga. Udah pada lihat belum nih Q3 resultnya udah keluar ya Mas Angga ya?
Iya, emang cukup ini ya kelihatannya naiknya cukup lumayan ya. Kalau misalkan kita baca sih hampir naik 5 kali lipat ya kalau nggak salah ya itunya. Nanti mungkin detailnya kita tanyain langsung aja komennya Pak Dilip ya ini ya. Tapi memang pas banget sih momennya ini mumpung masih anget lah ya, baru banget keluar mungkin 2 hari yang lalu ya baru kali ya ini ya, sehari atau 2 hari yang lalu. Jadi mungkin teman-teman masih banyak pertanyaan nih yang baru-baru ngulik gitu kan, penasaran, monggo langsung langsung ditanyain di chat box-nya aja ya, di question box-nya.
Boleh, iya. Ntar soalnya mumpung ada orangnya langsung nanya aja nih, Pak Dilipnya udah ready ya? I think we can start. Jadi stay tune dan kalau ada questions bisa langsung ditaruh di Q&A chat. Oke, semoga udah join nih Pak Dilipnya. Hai Pak Dilip.
Hello, hi, Talia, how are you?
Good. How about you? Hope all is well ya Pak.
Yep, all is well. The CNBC just took a longer time, that's all.
Okay. No worries. Yeah, I think some of the stockbiter have also joined to know your stories. Probably we can start with maybe share about your Q3 results. Good congratulations on your Q3 results, and then tell us more on the Q3 results for the revenue, profitability, and capex. What drives the Q3 result earnings as well as your full year 22 guidance back?
Okay. We've already published our unaudited September 22 results, day before yesterday. And I put out a summary on profitability.
Yeah, yeah.
And we put out an announcement as well last evening. Now, just to recap, our revenue has gone up by $2.5 billion
Mm-hmm.
in the 9 months last year versus this year. We had $6.3 billion of revenue this year versus $3.75 billion last year. So that's a 67% increase in revenue. We've had an operating profit which has doubled to $1.6 milliard US dollar, compared with maybe 700 million last year. Our total net income, that is total income, comprehensive, is $940 million. And the pre-tax income is above $500 million. And the attributable net income to us is $365.5 million, compared with $64 million last year. So the profit has gone up, mumkin lima kali.
Okay.
Now, regarding profit before tax, we are at $1.5 billion. Then it is the tax and the interest and the other things that have taken care of the rest. So basically, our total net income is $940 million, and the attributable to us is $365 million for our 50% share in KPC. When it comes to operating measures, our challenge the whole year up to September, and that continues into October and November, ada hujan.
Okay.
Sampai December 21, right up to now, November 22, the rains have been very heavy. And BUMI does open cut mining. We have 300-meter deep pits. Sometimes it is difficult to move 300-ton equipment on those roads. And sometimes the mines also get flooded, both in KPC and Arutmi. The rain has been double that of normal in previous years. And as you know, November monsoons are starting again, so the rainy season is starting. So we are facing challenges, but we are trying to do the best we can. What I want to say is, Q1, we produced only 16 million tons in Ambilas. Q2, we improved it and made it 18 million tons. In Q3, we raised it further and have made it 20 million tons. We are hoping that in the Christmas stretch, that is Q4, we can do better.
Okay.
But the rains are not being very kind, so we are doing our best. The guidance untuk volume for this year is anywhere between 70 million to 78 million tons. But if you ask me very frankly as to how much we can do, I think we will be in the lower band of maybe 72 to 74 million tons, compared with last year of 78 million tons. But last year, we only got a price of $62 per ton. This year, up to September, we have got $118 or $119 per ton. And for the full year, we are guiding 70 million tons to 78 million tons at a price between $120 to $130 per ton, at a cost of $45 per ton production cash cost. And that is largely increased because of fuel. And because it is raining, we have removed the soil or the overburden from the mine. So we have removed the earth. We have exposed the coal, but we have not been able to extract the coal because we can't take the equipment down to take the coal out, which is why our cost has also gone up. The strip ratio has gone up. But when the weather is better, when it is drier, I think we can accelerate production and make up for some of the export backlogs and maybe even consider supplying to Europe as well, new markets and all. So I would say that the prospects look very good for this year. If we have done, we made $43 million of profit in quarter one. We have made $124 million of profit in quarter two. We have made $197 million of profit in quarter three. And I think quarter four, we should be far superior. But just remember two things, Thalia.
Okay.
Pertama kali,
Hmm.
rains have cost us 10% of production. We have run down our inventory. Our inventory has come down by half to maximize sales. Number two, we are the largest supplier to PLN and the domestic market. And as you know, domestic market comes at a special price. So that also impacts our realizations, but we see that as a national priority. It is something that we just must do as a responsible corporate national company. So even though we are doing that, the third factor which has affected us more than anybody else is the royalty rate.
Okay.
Both KPC and Arutmin are IUPKs. And from 1st January, 2022, our royalty rate has gone up.
Okay.
Last year, it was 13.5% on revenue. This year, it is 14% on domestic, and 14% even on what we supply to PLN, and 28% on exports. So our royalty has gone up by 11 or 12%.
Okay.
So if we are looking at a revenue of $6.3 billion in the 9 months of September, the extra royalty that we have paid to the government is actually about $800 million more than last year. So if we were paying the old royalty rate, our revenue, our costs would be $800 million lower, and our profit could have been $300 million more in the 9 months of this year. No other coal company is actually paying the higher royalty this year. That will come into effect next year. Now I told you we had lost 10% of production. So that's about 6 million tons of coal. If you take that at $120 per ton, it basically means that we have also lost $700 million of revenue. And $700 million of revenue translates to another $100 million or $150 million of profit. So actually, if you take all these three factors into account, our profit in 9 months would not be 356. It would be nearer 800 or $900 million. We are the highest royalty payer. We are the highest taxpayer. We are the highest earner of foreign exchange in the country. And we pride ourselves on our very high national position. We are the largest producer, and I think our capacity is about 60% higher than the next producer.
Okay.
And I think on PEs and on valuation parameters, now that we don't have any more debt from 19th of October, we will also save $150 to $200 million of interest cost on an annualized basis. And that $200 million can be added to the net income next year as well. So the prospects for this year as well as next year are actually quite bright. And people can do their arithmetic on valuation.
Okay, sounds good. Kayaknya the result should be good ya Mas Angga ya for until full year 2022 ya.
Iya, kalau tadi pendapat Pak Dilip, mungkin kita rekap dikit ya jawabannya tadi, respon dari Pak Dilip. Mungkin teman-teman tadi banyak yang minta gitu loh, mungkin kaget ini pakai bahasa Inggris ya. Mungkin kalau saya rekap cepat aja, ininya kalau secara konsolidasi sudah pakai KPC ya, pendapatannya naik 67% ya, jadi 6,3 miliar dolar AS. Terus profit juga naik 5 kali lipat ya, ke 365 juta.
challenge atau tantangan yang paling besar tahun ini tuh di curah hujannya ya, yang sejak Desember tahun lalu ya, karena BUMI banyak mainnya tuh tambang terbuka lah, open pit ya. Lalu guidance untuk 2022 antara 70 sampai 78 juta ton untuk produksinya, tapi kelihatannya bakal di batas bawah nih, lower band sekitar 70-an juta jadinya. Terus juga BUMI itu kalau mau teman-teman tahu adalah supplier terbesar di PLN ya. Untuk PLN, jadi kalau ada harga ASP selling price-nya itu rata-rata lah domestik sama ekspor. Terus tadi ada sedikit impact ya, terkena impact royalty rate yang memang kita sama-sama tahu sudah naik ya. Tadi sebelumnya 13,5%, jadi sekarang BUMI itu bayar 14% untuk ke PLN dan 28% untuk yang ke ekspor, kurang lebih gitu.
Sounds good, Mas Angga. Mungkin kita mau lanjut pertanyaan kedua. We will with the questions or Stockbitor from Stockbit ID RIP G01. Regarding the processing fund from the price placement that will be used for debt payment, can you update us on how's the debt condition after this corporate action? So is there any further plan regarding the debt, or do you think that the debt will be safe and sound until end of year, Pak?
Well, from November, there will be no debt. All the PKPO debt has been settled. The money has been transferred on the 19th of October to the lenders. Tranche A is paid, Tranche B is paid, Tranche C is paid to China Development Bank fully, along with interest, and the contingent value rights has been paid. The only amount that is pending really are the OWKs, which have a maturity of 2024. But because the conversion is at 80 rupiah per share, we think that bulk of it could get converted by the 10th of December, when the next OWK conversion date gets fixed, which could be above 150. So I have a feeling that we've already received some conversion requests, and there could be more that will follow. So we will be debt-free, and I think we will be net cash positive. And our debt, we won't have debt. So essentially, we'll be net positive on equity without debt. So I think our capital structure balances from high debt to zero and negative debt in a space of 2 months. And the interest cost goes away of $200 million a year. So there are no conditions left anymore. And the only issue on the OWKs is that we cannot settle the interest on OWKs by shares. That's not allowed by regulation. So we are looking at other options on how to do that. So we put out redemption requests and all, and we are hoping that by the end of the year, that can also be concluded. But next year, we should add $150, $200 million to our net income, quite apart from the operational profit, because we won't be paying interest.
Oke, mungkin kita bantu ini dulu kali ya, rekap dikit kali ya ini ya. Mungkin tadi yang paling menarik sih ini ya, dari jawaban Pak Dilip itu mulai dari bulan ini ya, November ya berarti ya, sudah debt free ya BUMI ya. Pak Dilip, maybe to clarify, this is interest bearing debt kan Pak, yang ini that will be free ya
Pak? Yes, everything is interest bearing debt except for the contingent value rights of $100 million. That was interest free. But that was an incentive given to lenders in 2017 during the debt restructuring to sign the restructuring agreement. When the coal price was only $48, and it was difficult to do anything else. And the reason we did the private placement with the help of the controlling shareholders and now the joint controlling shareholder is that in today's context, nobody wants to lend money to the coal sector. No bank, no institution. Coal is not a very polite word to use in society anymore. So it was just not possible. So when the controlling shareholders with an investor came in saying, we'll help you settle your debt, and we'll take it through shares, we gladly accepted in the absence of any alternative, and to avoid a default on 11th December 2022. which would not have been good for shareholders.
Oke Pak, noted Pak. Jadi tadi ada juga mention sedikit tentang udah nerima juga BUMI request untuk conversion dari bonds-bondsnya ya, convertible bonds. Terus diperkirakan juga ada penghematan kalau nggak salah 150 sampai 200 juta ya dari beban bunga yang kalau nanti udah nggak ada lagi gitu mulai tahun depan ya kalau nggak salah. Lalu tadi dibilang juga mungkin ada potensi juga jadi net cash positif ya dari posisi utang yang tinggi akan berbalik jadi net cash positif kurang lebih. Itu sih Pak yang saya tangkap dari jawaban Pak Dilip ya. Ini.
Oke. Mungkin we can follow up to your questions kali Mas Angga. I think you have several questions on your side too ya Mas Angga.
Oke.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, Pak Dilip. Well, first of all, I think congratulations are in order, Pak, for BUMI Q3 results. Very, very positive, and also for the private placement that was held last month, ya, Pak. Ya. I think a lot of investors were eagerly waiting on that corporate action. But following up on that, now I think there's a burning question in investor minds. Now, since the Salim Group now we can say it sort of like co-owns BUMI, Pak. Is there any synergy or collaboration plan in the future with Salim Group? And probably can you give us color on what's the next step after this private placement, Pak?
See, we do not see any impact on our future vision over the next 10, 20, 30 years. I think one must remember that Mr. Aga Bakri, who's the eldest son of Pa Nirwan Bakri, he is the president director of the company. So he is driving his vision. And the first step that he has taken really is the settlement of debt, making the company healthy, so he can begin realizing his vision. So I would think number one would be to earn more money out of the existing coal business and keep it as its cash cow. There is no intent to increase capacity. But definitely we need to improve profitability and to see how we can optimize costs and take advantage of an enriched mix and higher realizations in today's context. Now, the second one is that we all know that the world is moving towards cleaner energy. And coal is not a very polite word in society, particularly in the Western world. And even the banks are beginning to apply pressure that they cannot lend to anything that's even remotely connected to coal. Much of it, frankly, I have my own views on. Much of it could be a fair amount of hype. But let's face the situation as we are now. Now, we are looking at what we can do in the non-coal diversification space. One is, what can we do in the coal business itself? Now, in the coal business itself, we are looking at electrification of our diesel-powered equipment. So we are already progressing that. The second one that we are doing is that our concession size is about 5 times the size of Singapore. So what we are doing is that on the reclaimed land that we do, basically we are trying to consider using solar panels so we can generate power. The third one that we are looking at is the feasibility of rooftop solar to generate your own electricity. And the fourth one that we are doing in a similar area is talking to overseas collaborators on the solar business itself. And then outside KPC and Arutmin, we are also looking at coal downstream projects, which is a national priority, where you use coal to produce the power, and that gets converted into syngas. Syngas goes into methanol, and methanol downstream can go into diesel, which becomes a replacement for imported diesel oil, which is again a national priority. Now, at this point of time, our involvement is the supply of coal. There are other partners who are doing it. But we are searching for the right strategic technical partner to help us project fund it and to put it up. And then we can take over. And once the project is nearer commissioning, we can consider maybe taking a different investment position, which may be even equity and other things at that stage. Maybe Arutmin can join, or they can set up another facility on their own plant. Now that's been examined. The timeline for these really is 2025 going up to about 2026 or so for completion. But we are progressing this on a priority basis. The other set of projects that we are doing really is in the blue energy space. We are looking to see how we can burn coal cleaner for power to enter into the cleaner energy spaces such as hydrogen and other things where we are examining the feasibility. And in a similar vein, we are also looking to get out of energy and to get into the integrated metal space. And that we can consider on a third site that we have. And that can be really a clean power, maybe a hybrid power, going on to smelting, going on to metals. So we are examining that feasibility. And then we are also have BRMS, where we have 21% stake. We are hoping that the gold and zinc business can pick up and become a revenue generator. And then we have a stake in Dharma Henva, which is a mining operator. It was an Australian mining operating company, which was working in KPC. And this was then acquired by friendly people around that time. They're undergoing some challenges of equipment and other issues. We are hoping they can resolve those issues in the next 2 or 3 years. And we can then get on to also generating some returns from there. Now, this is the whole bag of activities that we have. But when you ask me very frankly, what will be the driving force for the controlling shareholders, the joint ones, I think the first one will be profitability and dividends.
Okay.
And the next would be, I think, an equal priority, getting on to strengthening our business to generate more money from the existing businesses, strengthening the copper and gold and zinc business, where I think they are already involved.
Yeah.
And looking at Dharma Henva to see what we can do. And the second one is dividends.
Yeah.
I think that is also an equal priority, and that is a management priority. And while we are not very sure at this stage, but I'm sure that there would be an involvement, in the board and other things at some stage.
Okay, Pak, got it, Pak. Probably before we move more further about dividends, I think a lot of investors have question about that also, ya, Talia, ya, ini ya.
Yeah.
Probably I would like to recap a little bit first about your comprehensive explanation, Pak. Mungkin tadi di bagian pertama, apa sih rencana setelah masuknya grup Salim itu ya? Tentu BUMI mau mencoba ini ya, akan berusaha untuk meraih profitabilitas, terutama tadi juga dibilang dari bisnis coal-nya atau bisnis batu baranya itu akan tetap dijadikan ya quote unquote cash cow ya, atau inilah yang mesin penghasil uangnya gitu. Lalu juga ada ini juga kemungkinan kolaborasi untuk sebagai layaknya perusahaan mining lain itu untuk ke inisiatif untuk clean energy ya, kayaknya ya tadi Tale dibilang ada consider untuk solar panel, rooftop solar. Terus juga ada ngomong tentang investor untuk lebih banyak untuk kerjasama, yang menjajaki peluang kerjasama. Lalu tadi ada juga menarik nih tentang kemungkinan coal downstream ke metanol ya. Tadi udah ada pertanyaan nih dari salah satu viewers kita ya.
Betul.
Saleh 4W, Saleh 4W ya ininya ya. Nanya metanol itu akan jadi diesel nanti ininya ya. Lalu juga ada rencana inisiatif ke energi biru lah ya, di mana membakar coal atau burn coal lebih clean ya istilahnya. Terus juga ada tadi sempat mention integrated metal gitu, melihat looking opportunity juga gitu loh di bisnis itu. Mungkin kurang lebih yang kita tangkap itu ya Tal ya. Sebelum kita masuk ke kayaknya tadi Pak Dilip ada mention dikit soal dividen. Tahu ini ya Tal.
Tadi juga ada question dan mungkin later we can ask kali ya, kayak the timeline for the dividend kali ya. When do you think?
You see, I personally would like it as quickly as possible. But we have to cross a few hurdles there. We do have the issue of retained earnings, which are presently negative. But with the prospect of what we are doing, we think that our profits can be relatively high this year and next year. So we will examine the dividend possibility from next year. But I think it is looking a lot more certain in 2024 end. I think that is what we would be aiming for. And if we can do it before, definitely we will do it before. Because another question, Thalia, that some people have asked me that will you take a larger stake in KPC? So I have told them very clearly that, listen, KPC is 51% owned by BUMI, 30% owned by Tata Power, and 19% is owned by CIC. And all of them are very happy with the profitability of KPC. And they are actually benefiting from there. So is BUMI, actually. Now, my point is that if any one of them are willing to let go of their stake, we could be open. But at this point of time, we have not got any feelers. Now, if something like that happens, then you know that KPC's valuation, book value on our books is very low. It is at the original acquisition cost. So supposing something like that happens, then it could be possible to accelerate dividends. But this is just in the realm of speculation right now.
Okay, noted. So tadi kata kuncinya as quickly as possible ya Mas Angga ya? Cepatnya.
Iya.
I think it would be reasonable to say end 2024
Okay.
looks a lot
Wow.
more of a possibility.
Okay,
The
noted.
rest
So ada-
depends on certain things happening, which may happen or may not happen.
Wah, itu ada sedikit spill timeline-nya tuh, Tal.
Gitu. Okay. So Mas Angga, do you have any more further questions from your side, Mas Angga?
Okay, probably this is last one from me ya, Pak ya. Probably we have questions regarding the selling price, Pak, for BUMI, Pak. I think,
Yeah, sure.
Yep. So I think if we imply the ASP for 9 months, it's probably slightly touching $120 per ton, but that's for 9 months 2022. Can you give us a bit of color? You did mention earlier that your ASP is probably blended between what you sell to PLN and also export, yeah. Probably, can you give us a little bit color? What's the ASP for Q3 only, Pak? And how is it compared to Q2? And probably what's
Q3 is hang on, I think it's there in our Rico, do you know what is our realized price in Q3? I think we would be on a realized price in Q3 of about $120, $125, $130. But
right.
that is not really the issue to look at it, Anga. If you take out exports and then you take out domestics, the price is very different. If you are looking at exports, and KPC has normally more medium and high level coals, high ranked coals. KPC can be anywhere. If you begin with January, in January they were 110. In June they had become 209.
Wow.
And currently they are looking at 190, maybe 180 to 190. But if you go to domestic is anywhere between 45 to about 60 or so. So the blend then becomes what for KPC would be 135, 140. But if you just take exports, the export itself is about 170, 180. And likewise in Arutmin has mainly low-ranked coal. It doesn't really have much of high-ranked coal. And because of rains, they have not been able to produce very much of high-ranked coal. And they've suffered a bit on that. So if you're looking at their domestic prices, they have been ranging between $45 to maybe about $57, $58 per ton over various months. But if you're going back to 4,200 coal 2-3 years ago, they were only getting $30, $31, $32. So you can say that there is an improvement in Arutmin as well. And their export prices are more or less in line with the KPC price for the average GAR. They would be running at a level which is averaging about $160, $170 for exports, and the domestic would be nearer about $45, $50 per ton. So when you average it out and you sort of balance it for the volume and the mix, and you're getting a level of 120 or whatever is that number, 130 that we've guided. But if there was no DMO, we would actually be looking at $170, $180 per ton, adjusted for the quality. But
Right.
we are one of the larger producers of high-ranked coal in Indonesia. So we do benefit. And the others supply less domestically, so maybe they are lesser impacted. But we make sure that we supply 25% to 30% of what we produce domestically. Now, even the fertilizer and the other industry, I think they also had a cap recently of around $90. And PLN has 70. So we are doing that, but we are not complaining.
Sure,
But the
Pak.
shareholders need to understand that we are paying dividends to the government. We are the
Sure,
highest royalty payer, we are the highest taxpayer, we are the highest
Yep.
foreign exchange earner, and we get recognized for it. But unfortunately, the lenders had got dividends in the past. Now it is the turn of the shareholders to get dividends. So we are doing our best, because even the joint controlling shareholders have a similar interest in getting dividends as the average shareholder.
Sure, Pak. Ya, jadi tadi mungkin sedikit jawaban dari, saya rekap dikit ya, dari Pak Dilip. Ya, ASP obviously sekali lagi itu blended ya, antara DMO, kewajiban DMO dengan ekspor. Lalu mungkin ya tanpa DMO ya pasti obviously harusnya jauh lebih tinggi ya. Tapi tadi again, ya sebenarnya BUMI udah bayar dividen tapi untuk ke pemerintah sekarang dalam bentuk royalti ya, dan mungkin dulu sebelumnya mungkin ke lender ya dalam bentuk mungkin interest payment ya ini ya. Tapi probably Pak Dilip a little bit follow up on that. What do you see? Do you have any forecast or estimation what your selling price would be in Q4 or maybe next year? Now that I think the benchmark price has retraced a bit from its all-time high, Pak. Although to be fair, it's still well above 300. Where would you see your selling price
A
would be?
fair amount depends on what volume we can achieve in Q4. Now, as I said before, we have done 16.3 million tons in Q1. We have done $18.3 million in Q2 in spite of very heavy rain. We've improved. We got more equipment and pumps and all that. And we are also taking some rain mitigation measures. Now, in Q3, we have done 19.3. Now, which means we are steadily improving. Now, in Q4, if we can do 20 or 21, our highest that we have done is really 24, 25. So we are trying to see what best we can do, but we are being set back, by continuing rain. So we are trying to do our best. So that is why I said that when our guidance is 70 to 78, if it is 78, I think we can be very optimistic. If it is 70, we will still make profit, which is higher than Q3.
Okay.
If it is 74, 75, it will be significantly higher than Q3. And Q1 was $43 million. Q2 was $124 million. Q3 was $197, $198 million. And I will let you imagine and do your arithmetic for Q4.
Okay.
And let me also tell you that whatever income we get this year for the rest of the year will probably be the highest net income BUMI has ever earned in its 30 years of production.
Okay.
And next year should be even higher.
Okay. Sure, Pak. Okay. Tadi mungkin
And from November, December, we will also get the benefit of lower interest costs for 1 month or 2 months.
Okay. Jadi
At the
tadi
rate
balik
of
lagi.
$200 million a year or whatever it is, you will get about $10-20 million more.
Oke, mungkin saya rekap dikit deh. Tadi ada mention juga ya, mungkin revenue ke depan juga akan berpengaruh. Mungkin challenge terbesarnya masih di volume produksinya ya. Tadi obviously udah dijelaskan karena emang hujan, jadi targetnya mungkin yang lebih realistis di sekitar untuk Q4 produksinya tuh 20 sampai 21 juta ton ya. Tapi again, BUMI mungkin juga akan mulai dapat keuntungan dari penghematan beban interest payment ya, beban bunga yang akan mulai dihemat dari November sampai Desember ini. Oke, gimana nih Tal? Kayaknya dari kita cukup, tapi udah bisa ambil pertanyaan nggak? Udah banyak banyak banget nih pertanyaan dari teman-teman nih.
Iya nih, kayaknya udah ada beberapa. Padahal maybe we'll be taking 2 questions from our viewers. So
Sure.
the first question from Tigaris Ilifandi. BUMI get very much dividend from KPC, but used to pay for relation debt. Can you explain? And then another question will be from Pratama Rafid. So he mentioned he would like to know in regards to the commodity cycle, has it reached its peak level or what, and how can this affect your result?
All right. Can you repeat the KPC question again? Sorry, I didn't hear it properly.
Oh, it's okay. So it will be BUMI get very much dividend from KPC, but used to pay for the relation debt. Can you elaborate on that?
See, KPC is a profitable asset.
Okay.
Now, the 51% of the income we earn from them is already there in our financial statements. Now, this year they have done far, far better than last year.
Okay.
But they lost about 7 or 8 million tons of production because of rain. I mean, that's their forecast for the year. Now, if they had got the 7 million tons or 8 million tons more, they could have got another 800 million to $1 billion of revenue. So instead of the revenue that they have earned, they could have been $1 billion more, and we could have got more dividends for the 51% portion that we own. So the net income would have been definitely far higher. Now, when we talk about dividends, because we had lenders, whatever was the money that was coming from cash from KPC and from Arutmin was being put into an overseas cash waterfall mechanism, which was run by the Bank of China and run by the Bank of New York, Mellon, on behalf of the lenders, because that was part of the 2017 debt restructuring agreement. So the only money that BUMI got was the money for its overhead expenses for the head office and for the expenses it incurs. And everything else that BUMI received on its account went into the cash waterfall, and that money went straight to the lenders. It is actually only from November, once the cash waterfall mechanism with Bank of China and with Bank of New York Mellon stops, that money from KPC and whatever comes from Arutmin will come directly to us. So then we will start figuring out what we need to do with it. Our expenses in BUMI have not gone up, so we don't have much plans. But we have a development site in Pendopo. We are looking at non-coal diversification projects. We want to generate more cash and profit from KPC and Arutmin. And the idea is to use that money, one, for non-coal diversification exploration projects or feasibilities, and to get it. And the second one is to generate enough profit and cash so we can give dividends and reverse the negative retained earnings as quickly as we can. So the pressure will be on KPC in particular and Arutmin to actually multiply and increase profit. And like I said before to Pahanga, that if some of the other shareholders are not interested in holding on to coal stocks for whatever reason, you know, I suppose the joint controlling shareholders could take a look at it. So can BUMI actually. And that, of course, will increase the revenue possibility, it will increase the profit possibility, and accelerate the dividend possibility. But like I said, it's all very uncertain. We can't say anything because it's a profitable project, so nobody wants to let go, I suppose.
Oke.
Oke. Tadi mungkin bantu rekap dikit ya tadi ya, klarifikasi mengenai mungkin dividen dari KPC ya. Mungkin selama ini tentu proceeds-nya atau hasilnya itu dibayarkan dulu ke lender ya. Karena kita tahu teman-teman, kalau teman-teman kita memegang saham, obviously prioritasnya di bawah lender gitu ya. Ini ya. Pastinya yang harus dibayar duluan adalah pemberi pinjaman gitu ya. Tadi juga diinikan, tapi kalau nanti sudah selesai utang dengan lendernya, itu tentu BUMI akan memiliki lebih banyak cash ya, dan bisa digunakan mungkin tadi untuk proyek-proyek ke non-coal-nya ya, atau non-batu baranya, diversifikasi ke situ, lalu juga hopefully juga bisa buat bagi dividen tentunya, harapannya kita semua.
Okay.
All right, there was a second question that was raised on the commodity super cycle, am I right?
Yeah, so there are like questions and follow-up, like, so is it since already reached its peak level, or what do you think? Is it already reached its peak level currently?
No, what exactly is the objective behind the question on commodities?
Oh, so they're asking whether for the commodity cycle, whether it has reached its peak level, and then what do you think for the coal commodity cycle right now? So where is it?
All right.
Yeah.
You see, the coal a commodity super cycle is an economic condition when there is 10 years of year-on-year growth. Now, 3 years ago, if you were trying to forecast where commodities are going, we could not have forecast the pandemic. We could not have forecast the economic contraction and the lockdowns. And we could not have forecast the energy crisis. And we could not have forecast the Ukraine-Russia war. Nor can we forecast the China-Taiwan situation, or how bad India-Pakistan will go, or what will happen to the China and US relations. Now, those are the uncertainties. Now, in today's context, inflation is very high, largely because of the Russian war and the energy crisis. Now, all countries are trying to control inflation by managing the bank rates, by raising the rates, including the Feds, including Britain, including Japan, everybody else. They are giving handouts, to protect the economy and the currency. Now, what this happens is that in a time when prices are rising and demand is rising, even foodstuff prices have started rising.
Yeah, that's true.
Basically, when you start making money expensive, it means you are inhibiting growth. So you have high price and you are inhibiting growth. So what happens as a result is that there is a stagflation, where prices remain high, but there's uncertainty on demand, and that, if it continues for some time, leads to a recession. And that can happen for 2 years when everything just falls. Now, when we are looking at, supposing in a worst case scenario, something like that happens, what will happen to energy? Ultimately, developed countries can pay more for energy costs. Developing countries are unable to pay for the additional cost. And as a result, there is a dichotomy, and there will never be a consensus on what is the right step to take. So my view on coal is that population is rising from 2 billion people in maybe 100, 150 years ago. They are now 8 billion people. 8 billion people will become 10 billion people. 10 billion people will become 12 billion people over time. Now, what happens when people increase? Their demands increase. Now, what happens when demands increase? Their requirements increase. It basically means you require more power. When you require more power, you need more feedstock. Now, what feedstock do you have at this point of time? There's only 5. The 5 feedstock basically are coal, gas, nuclear, geothermal, biomass, hydro. Now, what else is there? Biomass, hydro are too small. Gas, if the price remains high, is unaffordable. Nuclear, all countries cannot have. So what is left? It is only coal. And in coal, nobody is investing in coal capacity. They are saying that it has a problem. Everyone must stop coal from tomorrow. We must phase out our coal-fired power plants. Now, when that happens, it's going to create further pressure on price and demand. Which is why the Europeans and the Americans and even the South Africans and even the Indians and the Chinese are beginning to relook temporarily at their feedstock policy. So I think that over the next 5 or 10 years, you can say coal could be in some kind of a Kasi commodity super cycle where the demand will be there, renewables will be unable to supply because they have their own sets of challenges of storage and reliability and weather, and even costs. They have their own set of issues. So therefore, the only thing that will be required is coal, maybe some gas, and nuclear. And people are talking geothermal, but it's got its own challenges. It's geographically restricted. So there is nothing else really. So we have to look at ways on how to burn coal cleaner. We have to prolong the life of coal. And to do that, one needs to relax the funding restrictions. They can be made for burning coal cleaner, like what they do in Japan. They even have a carbon capture, utilization, and storage giant plant in operation, which can be used as a pilot. And we ourselves in BUMI are looking to see in some of our captive coal-fired power plants, which we use for ourselves and the kampungs for CSR, whether we can whether we can use this technology, burn coal cleaner, capture the carbon dioxide, and showcase that as an example. Now, that is what we need to do as well. Now, my only question here is that when it comes to renewables, coal, the fossil fuel demand has not fallen, even though the world has spent $5 or $6 trillion on renewables. The demand remains the same, and in fact, this year has gone up by 1%. Now, my point is that even off that 5 or 6 trillion, if you spend even 1% of that on technology research and R&D, on cleaner coal burn, on carbon capture, utilization, and storage, or how to capture carbon dioxide cheaper, that may also be something that the industry can do, or the people who burn the coal can use. They can draw examples on how to remove impurities from the shop floor when burning coal, like in Japan. And we can look at carbon capture, utilization, and storage, where you reduce the emissions or even literally eliminate them. But what I notice basically is that let's get out of coal and get into something else, which is still quite unreliable.
Okay.
So I would think that the commodity super cycle for coal in particular can continue for a period of 5 years or maybe even 10 or 20 years until the energy transition has fully taken place. They need to coexist basically. One cannot do without the other. They have to coexist.
Kayaknya tadi itu ya Tal ya, bagian terakhirnya Pak Dilip. Mungkin kalau view-nya ya dari Pak Dilip mungkin super cycle bisa ya sampai 5 tahun lagi sekalian inilah sambil nunggu transisi energi kelar ya. But probably Pak Dilip, probably we have time for just one last question, Pak. Probably we're gonna take it from the floor. This is from Pak Steve Winarto ya. He's one of our top stockbiter ya, Talia ya, kalau nggak salah ya. Ini ya. Okay, this question is probably a bit a bit burning, but feel free to answer whatever you can reveal at this moment, Pak. He was asking, is there any plan to sort of like take over the 30% of KPC from Tata Power, maybe, Pak? Oh, I think Pak Dilip, I think he's buffering ya.
Ask.
Okay.
Bentar ya, aku tanyain dulu.
Probably. Iya. Udah tinggal dikit lagi sih, nggak kerasa ya Tal ya, 1 jam ya. Cepet banget.
Wait, aku
Okay,
pastiin.
now he's out.
Gimana guys?
Oke,
Sabar.
mungkin sambil kita confirm ya ke Pak Dilip masih mau ini apa enggak.
Iya
Oke,
nih.
tapi hopefully ini ya teman-teman stockbit orang lain, jadi kalau ada yang mau kira-kira biar kita bisa undang lagi untuk trending on stream ini, ramein di streamnya ya, Tal ya, di stockbit streamnya ya, Tal ya.
Lagi pengen langsung aja tuh di stream, siapa tahu rame dan bisa kita ajak juga nih kayak acara kayak begini.
Oke. Mungkin bisa kita tutup kali ya Tal ya. Kebetulan juga udah jam 5 nih.
Iya betul. Mungkin tadinya mau nitip closing remarks nih sama dia nih kalau cuman coba aku pastiin sekali lagi ya. Oke, I think like he's trying to reconnect, tapi masih belum bisa ya up until now ya.
Iya, kayaknya cuacanya agak jelek nih kalau di tempat saya sih.
Iya, betul.
Agak hujan nih di wilayah Jakarta sih, di tempat saya hujan nih.
I see. Oke deh, kalau memang dalam kayak 1 menit, 2 menit, kalau nggak ada mungkin kita bisa close kali ya. Tunggu, ini tiba-tiba PT BUMI. Coba ya sekali lagi. Kalau memang tidak ada, bisa kita close sih.
Oke.
Ya, hai Pak.
Hai Pak.
Atau closing.
Oke Pak.
Ya.
Okay, while we have you back, Pak, do you have, should we do one more question, Pak, from the floor, Pak? I think...
As many as you like, all right. Go ahead.
Okay, probably just one more. Probably this is from Pak Steve Winarto, one of our top stockbiter users. Yeah, he asked, is there any plan for BUMI to absorb the 30% KPC shares from Tata Power, Pak? And again, feel free to answer this to with whatever you can reveal or not reveal at the moment, Pak.
Well, it's all speculation.
Okay.
But let's just understand that Tata Power is going green. If you look at their India operations, and if you see what they do have coal-fired power plants. They are one of the largest private sector producers of power. But they are also diversifying into green energy and the renewable space. But like I mentioned before, really it is their decision. They had a 30% stake in Arutmin and they got out of it. But KBC, I mean, we have not got any signal whatsoever that they are not interested in it. But under the agreement that we have, if any shareholder wants to actually dispose of his shares, then BUMI has the first right of refusal. So none of that has happened yet. But
Oke.
of course, I mean, supposing we are able to get 30% more, it means your profit will go up by another couple of $100 million. And I think Tata know that as well, and I think they might like the profit.
Oke, again tadi itu ya jawaban dari Pak Dilip. Mungkin jangan di ini ya, teman ya. Mungkin at this point ya mungkin jangan ditelan mentah-mentah, ini masih spekulatif. Tapi memang kita ada indikasi Tata Power itu going green ya. Mereka mulai merambah ke energi hijau dan obviously mau jual apa enggak itu keputusan mereka. Tapi sebelumnya mereka sudah pernah keluar di Arutmin ya. Itu mungkin itu rekap jawaban dari Pak Dilip. Oke. Talia mungkin balik dulu tahu.
Okay, I think we already answered a lot of questions ya Pak. Hopefully we can't wait for your Q4 results. And since you mentioned that the full year 22 it's gonna be on the better side ya Pak. So do you have any closing remarks Pak in regards for this meeting?
Well, I find that this is one of the very interesting meetings.
Okay.
There's been a very useful, mutually educative exchange. And I think the presenters have been quite probing in their questions. I mean, I'm not accustomed to such direct questions. But you know us, we are relatively transparent. And whatever questions you ask, we are willing to answer, sensitive or otherwise.
Okay.
So I want to thank you for the opportunity. But I just, on a closing note, I did want to say that KPC is also looking at carbon capture, utilization and storage, as I mentioned, for power. And they also use biofuels, as an additive to diesel. So they're also trying to reduce their direct dependence on full diesel. That's part of going green. So from our side, I think the management now has to stop looking at the debt overhang, but get on to the true business of building back value. And I think Pa Anga and Thalia, you both have been in the equity trade for a long time. You know how to value companies. So if you're looking at the reserves that we have compared with our market cap or the share price, you can figure out that we are 3 or 4 times undervalued. And that's the true fundamental. Now, as far as the price earnings, I don't think you should look at 22. It's better to look at 23. And I think let people do their own arithmetic. I think next year should be far superior to this year. Quarter 4 should be far superior to quarter 3. Quarter 3 was far superior to quarter 2, and quarter 2 has been far superior to quarter 1. Quarter 2 was 3 times higher than quarter 1. Quarter 3 was almost more than 50% higher than quarter 2. And in fact, the first half of this year has been equal to just the third quarter, if not more. In fact, third quarter has been higher than the full first half. So all I would say is that look forward to quarter 4 and have faith in 2023 without interest of $200 million. And I think we should get you there. But then all of you, have your own decisions, investment decisions to make. You all have your own mental perceptions about companies and other issues. And you have 600 stocks to choose from. But here is an opportunity to exchange information so one can take an informed investment decision. That's all.
Okay. Okay, but once again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much, Pak Dilip.
Yeah. Until next meeting, Pak. Thank you, Pak.
Yeah.
Thank
Sampai
you,
jumpa.
Pak Dilip.
Thank you very much.
Sampai jumpa, Pak.
And thank you, everybody. I mean, I appreciate the patience and your your availability, to listen to this talk from BUMI, arranged so kindly by Thalia and Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Oke.
Ya, Pak. You're welcome, Pak. Most welcome, Pak.
Convey my best regards to Wilson.
Alright.
Oke, we will.
Thank you.
Oke.
Bye.
Bye. Jadi disclaimer on ya. Jadi ini purely buat edukasi dan informasi. Jadi kalau misalnya pengen tahu tentang BUMI atau tentang call company bisa langsung cek di call reportnya Mas Angga. Mas Angga punya callnya report call di Stockbit Education ya. Dan
Stockbit Academy ya. Bisa dicek unboxing batubara ya ininya ya. Cek aja di stockbit.com/academy.
Oke. Dan kalau misalnya mau juga tentang BUMI, bisa juga cek di Stockbit Stream. Oke, thank you semuanya. Bye.
Thank you semuanya. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih.